Shipping. Boy howdy, does it suck. I did a video about shipping like 2 years ago, right? And I've talked about shipping on and off since then, right? But at the very same time, as I get more exposed into the internet and more how people think and mindsets of everything, it makes me hate shipping a ton more, right? There's never going to be a time where I sit here and I'm just like, yes, shipping is needed, shipping is fine, shipping is here, and all that sort of stuff. Now, actually, I will step back a bit on that statement. Shipping is fine, but the levels of how people go about it on the internet, much less just in general, in any shape and form, is just so quickly to turn into a toxic mess or easily to turn into something that is not needed, and any and all of that, right? Because there is a ton of communities that exist out there that shipping is like the first and foremost biggest thing for them, and then literally if you disagree with any ship or you make a problematic ship, quote unquote, then all of a sudden you're basically gonna get harassed, doxxed, all that sort of stuff as well that could potentially happen to you. And it's a stupid ass time. It is a stupid time because at the end of the day, these are just characters. Who cares what character you put another character with? If you have that as your headcanon, fine, but in the moment you start, taking it as like an actual canon, that's when things also get very much stupid, right? Like, that's why for a lot of stuff, like a lot of games, anime, doesn't matter, I can't really sit here and enjoy certain characters, right? And I've said this like before with ZZZ when we was doing like, I believe, the bust down, I want to say, which is like the whole relationship between Astra, Yao, and Evelyn or something like that. Like, I can't really take those characters seriously anymore, much less I can't really care for those characters in any shape and form, mainly due to the fact of how the internet, just ships them together, when clearly in the game, at least by, the language of how the game wants to say things, they're basically kind of like family, kind of like sisters in a way, right? Which reminds me of a different group of sisters that should have remained sisters that we'll talk about in a minute. But when it comes down to it though, they're supposed to be like, sisters in a way, which, yes, you could very much say, well, blame Hoyoverse for making them feel like they're really hella gay, which, yeah, I can very much see that, but also at the very same time too, the amplified effect of just how fans can kind of be when it comes down to it though, is on like a whole nother level. They take a regular ship and then just spruce that up with whatever effect they want to, and then make it whatever it is, and then go with that headcanon for as long as they effing can. And that's just ultimately what fandoms do. They take whatever is actually canon, amplify the things that they like, and then just go into it in a very, very good way or a very, very bad way. Like, I know it's Pride Month and all that, but I ain't gonna lie, taste the rainbow, mother effer. But when it comes down to it though, I could care less about this ship, much less anything of shipping whatsoever. Like I said before, I am not your ally. I am here to care for the individual and not that type of team effort nonsense, because the team sucks. So let's just keep that very much aside. But when it comes down to it though, again, something like Astra, Yao, and Evelyn, I could not care for that. There is no way in hell I could care for that, just because of how much of an amplified effect it is. Now, canonical ships, is another thing that could also very much be something I don't really like, depending on how it's done. Now, something like, Atomic Key and that one guy in Fire Force, that's a fine ship. I was rooting for the boy that was on that damn farm for the longest time. Go get Tamaki's cheeks, clap her ass cheeks immediately. Do what you need to do, because we all want to dive into Tamaki's cheeks. That's just how it is. That's a canon ship that's perfectly fine. I don't have an issue with something like that. But then you get ships where it doesn't know what it wants to do, and then you also end up with something like Korra and Asami, and I'm immediately like, oh, well, this is just ass, right? Let's just keep it very much a stack. The entirety of that show, at least Korra especially, was the worst damn thing I've ever seen, because it didn't know what it wanted. It didn't know where to go. It didn't know what it wanted to actually be whatsoever. Korra and Mako, sure, and then they broke that off. Korra and Asami was basically just there because you just wanted that to be there, and then yeah, that's not really a solid thing at all, if I'm gonna be real. Much less you had Mako and Asami, which was also like a thing, you know, and that shit was just really tiring. Anything on Mako period was just tiring. You could have gave Mako better shit. You just chose not to, and there was no winning situation for Mako in there. I know people will say, oh, Mako effed up a lot, right? And I agree, but at the very same time, there's a lot of shit that was coming from, you know, I would mainly say Korra's side in that whole relationship when it comes down to it, because of how, I guess, like, knowing of societal norms and stuff like that, either like that feels basically what I was getting at when it comes down to it, because she has really only been living in the South Pole for like a long ass time because X reasons, I suppose. But that still doesn't make it feel right when, you know, Mako gets hoed like that. It feels a bit weird. But there are some shifts in there that I did like Varric and Julie, which honestly, Julie, why you want Varric, I don't understand that. You have a better BBC speaking to you right now. That's just ultimately how it is. Then you get, you know, a whole nice relationship out of Ulpul and Bolin, even though Bolin had to figure that shit out for like 5,000 years, but still, there was something there, I suppose. Even original Avatar between like Mei and Zuko was also really damn good, but Zuko don't deserve your gloomy ass. I do for sure. And again, the BBC still stands here, along with Ty Lee as well. Like, let's just be real. Ty Lee wasn't ship with anybody, but she can also just straight up get it. Right? But you get the damn point. It depends on how the ship is basically done. Right? If you're gonna keep flip-flopping through different characters and stuff like that, it makes me not care for that ship, much less think, oh, something else could possibly happen, and it doesn't feel like a solid ship whatsoever. I can understand maybe flip-flopping once or anything like that and immediately go into the next ship and just have that to be the thing forever. But if you just keep flip-flopping like that, or just hold out for a long period of time for no reason, and then ultimately maybe committing down the line later, I'm not really a giant fan of that. I really don't care, and that's just how it is. Which brings us to, obviously, the big reason as to why I wanted to yap about this damn video. And that's RWBY, because of course it is. It's not me shitting. It's not necessarily a shipping video or a RWBY video, if that's what you want to call this one, if I'm not shitting on RWBY for some damn reason, right? Again, conceptually, this show is fantastic, right? The ideas of what the show could be was fantastic, but obviously I'm praising a wish here and not the actual show itself, because I basically don't care for a lot of the stuff that happens in the show outside, I guess, of the original, you know, character personalities of what they were back then instead of what we have now. And also, yes, this does mean I did watch Dust Queen as well, and I think Dust Queen was done pretty dang well. I think it was a pretty solid, you know, story for what it is so far, and it's even animated really damn good. It brought something back with the characters, honestly, that I feel like it's been missing for RWBY for quite some damn time. That being said, there is still a giant thing in the room that I do feel like I need to address, because I really don't like it. I'm just gonna be honest, and that is the shipping culture of it, which RWBY has always had. In fact, that is mostly said to be the damning piece of RWBY's whole, you know, fandom with everything, mainly because everything about the shipping culture of RWBY is and can be toxic as hell, and that's why a lot of people don't participate within the RWBY fandom, because of that reason alone, right? And I'll be honest too, I don't really care for the shipping of RWBY. I don't really care for things like White Rose. I don't really care for things like Bumblebee whatsoever, and that has been, you know, been talked about with negative connotations as well, right? The only thing out of RWBY that I genuinely did like, and the reason why I even wanted to learn more about RWBY as the recent years has passed, which was basically just the homophobic RWBY, which sounds like a perfect time, honestly, considering the month right now. But when it comes down to it, though, that's really the only thing, because it was just like, what? RWBY snapping on people, and she's just calling people out like this? Why? What's happening here? And that's the sole reason as to why.
I don't hate them, just wouldn't want a dirty faunus dating my sister. Like, wasn't that skank with her own kind at some point? What was his name again? Sun or something? Pretty fitting, if you ask me, that she'd date a monkey. Just saying it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
And as I said before, and as I demonstrated in my own damn, you know, Kokatsu series, I don't really care for RWBY's team being like a whole team, right? I don't really care for the fact that Blake and Yang were thrown in together after so many years of just being like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a maybe, won't they sort of relationship, and just not committing to it when you clearly want to go that way. You just chose not to because dumbass reasons, I suppose, right? That's just ultimately how it is. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, though, it's just like it's unnecessary. It just feels a bit unnecessary, especially when Blake had good relationships with, someone like Sun, and I don't understand why the hell they got rid of that, because that was really dumb. I just feel like they put Blake and Yang together because of representation points, and that's solely the reason as to why. Representation because of, LGBT and all that nonsense, right? And then at the very same time, you also had, that to be there because of fan, I guess, like interaction and stuff like that too, with that nonsense too, right? And that's what it feels like the sole reason as to why they did it. And that's the exact reason why I wrote that shit up within my own damn story, right? Didn't really care too much for that and just crafted them to be a sisterhood. And now they're just basically like a whole hit squad essentially in that world where, Blake is the leader and, RWBY kind of takes a back seat a little bit. Not because she's terrible, but because she doesn't know what it means to be a leader, if I'm going to be honest. And that's the whole reason as to why I feel like Blake is a better leader than anybody else, right? Maybe arguably with Weiss, arguably, but at the very same time, that's just kind of how I took that initially when it comes down to, RWBY and how the story was done, and that just kind of is on that part of how I feel of just, story stuff in that general area, right? There is like, I don't know, is there any shifts in RWBY that I do care for? I did like, I guess, I can't think of the two in Jennifer. I really can't think of the two in Jennifer for whatever reason. Nora and the other dude, Ren, I think. That was a fine one, but then they broke that off for whatever dumbass reason, so that doesn't matter anymore, And then I guess that's literally about it. I can't think of another shift in RWBY that I would genuinely sit here and be like, oh yeah, this is perfectly fine. Even with the person that RWBY was effing with, like, that was inheriting Ozpin's body, or still inheriting Ozpin's body, or whatever. Even them, they kind of just like a whatever situation too, and I could not care less about that, right? That's just how it is for me. I don't know. RWBY just terrible at shipping. I feel like that's just the ultimate story of what we have here. My point is, especially with RWBY shipping in particular, it's just that I've seen it so much and the constantness of it so much that it makes me hate everything, right? And that's what shipping ultimately does for me and a lot of other people. It makes them hate everything. So even with something like Dusk Queen, as well as it's done, and the animation is really damn good, with the whole hint at White Rose being there and the whole hints at Bumblebee as well, it's just like, oh brother, here we go again, right? Because it just feels like we can't escape it. We cannot escape this shit, just like a black hole, and your planet getting screwed up in there because you're cooked. Like, that's what it feels like. We can't just go anywhere within RWBY whatsoever without some weird ass ship happening, or some ship just in general just happening just because it can. And that's essentially what it is, right? So ultimately, when it comes down to a lot of what I said today, shipping is just annoying, right? At least for me. Because, again, it ruins characters for me because people are so having these ships as headcanons like a death grip, and it just doesn't ultimately do anything for me personally, That's just how it is. And then that's not even like the only fandom like with RWBY that does it that bad, My Hero, do we need to go in that My Hero rabbit hole of how many people ship people and all this other stuff, and why it's the most terrible fandom of all fandoms, if we're gonna be real? Like, it is the most shit fandom of all the fandoms I've seen, right? Shipping included, and all the bunch of other stuff too. Like, it's a terrible time, right? At least the RWBY fandom can come up with different, universes and AUs and whatever to kind of satiate their needs and do what they want to, where, I guess like the My Hero fandom just likes to bully the shit out their own creator because of F you, that's why. And it's terrible every single time. It is shit every single time, right? Hell, there's even people in Genshin I don't really care for, like Child, because of the shipping relationship with Lamine. I don't care for that ship, and that's ultimately how it feels, right? That's just how it is. If I want to see anything with romance, or anything that carries with shipping hard as hell, that's what harem shows is for. That's what my ecchi shows at times is for. Because if I want to see romance, those are the shows where I watch it in, where it's over the top and it's fun for me. And that's personally just what I tune in for when it comes down to it. And yet, let it be known, they would be the ones that be trying to push the boundaries of anime half the damn time, if we're gonna be real. But my point is still this: shipping can be fine, and I'm not sitting here just to make this whole video to be like, oh, I hate shipping, everything it stands for. Shipping is fine. It's just when it starts getting to that toxic territory, when it starts to get into a territory of, oh, this is how it is and no one can disagree, and all this other stuff that's added to it, and just get the most bad, boring ships that you possibly can, all that shit sucks. All that shit sucks, and there's nothing fun to be had there. And it makes people want to not dip off into shipping ever again, because of just how people are when it comes down to it, and how much they are so hard aim and hard focus at it because of just how they feel about it. And it just sucks all the way around. So yeah, that's essentially, I guess, all I gotta really say for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. When it comes down to it though, we got a lot of things to discuss this week. Gaming stuff, other things, and a collaboration hopefully soon. So, be in tune for that. But when it comes down to it though, a lot of stuff popping out this week. Or at least this month in general. So, keep an eye out. But when it comes down to it though, that's all I got to say. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on the way out. Also follow me on socials, and if you'd like to donate to the channel, Kofi and Cash App is available as well. And until then, it's me, boy Jay, sign off. Have a blessed day.